Okay, thank you everybody for waiting and for holding on there. So good afternoon and welcome to the UK Contact Centre Forum webinar sponsored by Sentiment and in partnership with IP Integration. Joining us today is industry expert Mark Lockyer, Senior Consultant at IP Integration, and Leon Chaddock, CEO of Sentiment, the social customer service platform. We're going to discuss how the effective integration of social into the omni-channel experience can reduce cost to serve and deliver significant customer experience improvements. Our panelists will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Please enter them into the questions box on your GoToWebinar panel. I will be picking them up throughout the presentation and I'll put them to our panelists at the end. We are recording today's session and today's session will be available to you within the next 24 hours and you will receive personal invitations by email to view the recording. So I'm going to get things started and hand you over to Mark Lockyer. Again, he's a senior consultant at IP Integration and it's over to you, Mark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to listen to myself and Leon. I'm hoping that you can now see my screen. And what I'm going to do over the next 15 minutes or so as a lead into Leon's presentation is talk through how social and the omni-channel experience fits into the overall voice of the customer and how important it is to keep this in the forefront of our mind when we're looking at our contact centre world, because all too often the contact centre is considered a cost centre for a business rather than somewhere where people want to invest significant resource and funds in order to protect business rather than just streamlining the operation continually. So let's have a look first of all at where we believe the market really is. And looking at the brands and the organisations we interact with on a daily basis, it is plain to see that omni-channel will absolutely be the norm. And we want to make sure that the channel experience is exactly the same regardless of the type of interaction the client or the customer requests to be doing business with you. The customer, more now than ever, and this changes almost on now a 6-monthly basis, is telling us that they wish to be served in whichever capacity that they've interacted with you at a faster speed. When we look at social in comparison to other areas where people may want to contact you, such as telephone, email, etc., the speed by which people expect you to interact with them is vastly increased. Only yesterday I was on LinkedIn and looking at one of the largest logistics supplier in the UK and wider regions, and they were advertising that they were the brand to be doing business with to ensure that parcels were delivered in time for the Christmas break. Within 30 seconds, somebody puts a derogatory comment about their brand and the level of service and the fact that people were throwing their parcels into the back of a van. Now, what's unusual about that post is that this LinkedIn is normally a business-to-business environment, and yet we are now starting to see that no matter what the social interaction is, that our personal views are aired within the professional environment. That particular logistics company are still yet to respond to the negative interactions that continue to expand upon LinkedIn. So not only is it our customers that are telling us we need to respond quickly to their inquiries, we need to respond quickly and we need to make sure that we're abreast of what happens within the social world. Otherwise, our brand image is severely dented. Customers also expect us to know what makes us tick. So even though we don't like the fact that our large brands that we do business with have got information on our buying styles, on the types of interactions that we like to do business, in how we like to do business. But they do expect us to understand the behaviour that we're meant to show when we're talking, when we're conversing with them. So the expectation is you need to use your data in order to serve the customer in the way they want to. And most of that information comes from the social world. Customers now, using all forms of communication, are able to look and consider almost without any without any face-to-face or interaction with the brand. They are able to look at whether they decide to do business with you or not. They have the ability through all types of media to research and almost make a decision before they've contacted you. And when those of you that have got voice of the customer programs, you'll be well aware that it's all about customer expectation. And if we can deliver on the expectation that we put out of the brand, then we can educate our potential clients and our customers in a way that they can interact with us that befits our business as well as their requirements. So when we look at the length of time that you have in order to engage with a client over a year, it's only somewhere between 7 to 22 minutes that you've got an opportunity to have a successful engagement with your client or with your potential customer. Our customers expect us to be available 24/7 throughout the year. And it's how we cope with that demand, but understand we only have a short window by which to deliver what we need in order to get the job done that will make us successful or unsuccessful in the eyes of the client. We have to maximise that opportunity in the shortest amount of time. Social is the medium by which you can maximise that opportunity. So one of our partners did some considered research across the global markets, and it's interesting to see that no matter how a client or customer wants to interact with you, 70% of those people expect a unique treatment. They want to be contacted in a way that befits their life in a time that is tailored to their way of life. 92% expect organisations to be proactive in their engagement. So really, our clients are asking us to tell them about our brand, whether it be directly or indirectly. If we are doing business with them, if we are interacting with them, they want to have more knowledge about our brand moving forward. And social is a vehicle that you can use very quickly to get messages out to ensure that if it's a service base where there are compromised services, where you've got new lines of business, new products, any way that you are communicating with the wider community, social is the quickest way to get information out, but it has to be accurate. If we are perceived that we are easy to do business with, that interactions either via social, the contact centre, or any other media makes it easy for them to do business with, it means they don't have anywhere else to go looking to change the brand that they already trust. When interactions through the public are shown in the social environment, they can be very detrimental very quickly. It's not always what you would expect when a brand has a problem within the marketplace, such as the large telecoms companies, where data goes missing. You would expect that that interaction on social world would make it that they are vilified and they are the brand not to do business with. It isn't always the case. When you're honest and you tell the wider community that there is an issue, they are often more willing to wait and listen if they know there's an issue before they pass judgment. So staying with the idea that we all want personalised experiences, we look at the different types of media by which people can communicate with you. And systems are available now, and at not a lot of cost, to combine interactions in a social world, a call centre world, an email world, so that no matter how the current interaction is going, you are able, at the touch of a button, to view the most recent historical interactions from that particular client. So we could be on a telephone call and we are able to view the tweets, we are able to view the emails, we're able to view the LinkedIn posts for that client, for that contact, at the touch of a button. So in our call centre world, the agent has all the information required to serve the customer in the most likely way and have the information that the customer has given us in previous interactions, so they get served in the way they want. It's really important to reduce customer effort. Make sure that the effort that people put in to contact you, to do business with you, is minimal. It makes it easy. It's interesting that in our call centre world, 31% of us believe that customer effort significantly impacts spending, satisfaction, and retention. If it is easy, if effort is minimal, then people perceive us as an organisation they can contact at any time in order to get what they want. The chances are you've educated them, if you've done your job well, into interacting with you at the right time for your business. So in the contact centre, we are well aware of the requirements that our clients have on us, the way they want to do business with us. And yet, only 95% of managers say that, 95% of managers say customer experience is important to them going forward. But yet, of all of the information when we talk about doing a connected, personalised experience, very few of us have all of the systems in place in order to deliver that unique customer experience. It's not something that is often expensive, it's something that is often perceived as expense to bring all of the technologies together to give a single view of our clients. And yet with a few tweaks on the systems that you have, and perhaps some small input from your technical resources, you can achieve so much more with what you've already invested in. So if we look at the elements of the customer, the voice of the customer, it's changed in the last 12 months. Before we'd have been talking about the voice of the customer only. What is it that customers are telling us about? What is it that our Net Promoter score? What is our customer satisfaction score? Customer effort score? It was all about the customer, about what they are telling you you need to be doing. It is still partly about that, of course it is, and they are the most important. But in actual fact, if you look at the information your agents can give you, and you look at the information a contact centre can give you from the systems, and a contact centre now, as we know, is not the traditional telephones on desks. It's all forms of media, social, email, telephone, etc. Then those three elements, which combine to give us the full voice of the customer, can be fed into the organisation to make strategic change. So we should be challenging our businesses to make sure that we don't compromise on the areas to gather information. We want information from the customers. We want information from the agents. And we want both of those informations at the right time when the real emotion is being felt. We want us as managers, us as senior people in the contact centre to be able to act on insight and also deliver the information to the wider business about how our brand is being perceived. So the customer has a view on the brand, and we are very good at sending out surveys for 0 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend for a promoter score, 1 to 5 for CSAT, 3-to-1 for customer effort. What we often do is just rely on that information on a relationship basis, so maybe once or twice a year. Or we send out a survey after a period of time after a particular transaction. The contact center world now has changed, and we are embracing the ability to have the surveys done directly after a telephone call has been completed. You can do the same now for an interaction via a web chat. And the challenge is often put that the number of responses, the response rates are often lower within telephone surveys, post-web chat surveys. You don't actually need a massive sample in order to understand the voice of the customer. The information that you gather directly after an interaction is the real raw emotion from a customer. It is vital that the business understands how people feel when that interaction has just been completed. When you do that, you're able to start your operational closed-loop processes. So within the contact centre now, we are challenged by the business to put things right or make more of situations when we get the information back from our surveys. So if you survey people directly after a call or an interaction, then you have the ability to close that loop, to put right anything wrong almost instantly. And that comes back to our expectation as a customer that anything that we show the business that we're engaged with that isn't right, isn't perfect, we expect that to be put right as soon as possible. So do encourage engagement with the customer after an interaction. It is really important. Interestingly now, we have such rich information from our frontline staff, which arguably is being called the voice of the organisation, but now, really internally, it really is the voice of the customer. The people that work for you, the contact centre agents, are acutely aware of the brand perception. They genuinely know how the brand is shown in the public place. They're also acutely aware of information they have to hand and acutely aware of the elements and the information that they do not have in order to serve their clients in a way that they're expected to. If we were to ask the agents at the end of a call, what were the reasons for a successful call and unsuccessful call? And we can start to categorise that, and I'm not talking about the typical end of call reason codes. I'm talking about a short survey, maybe 2 questions, maybe 3 questions, depending on the application that they've just served. If we understand how the agent feels at the end of the call, we understand how engaged our agents are, but also their view on how the brand is being perceived within the wider community. It is a real richness of information. It empowers the agent and makes them feel empowered that they're delivering something back to the business. So encourage your agents to give that feedback. And again, lots of people will say that technology is very hard to implement. It really isn't. There are lots of applications that once a call has been finished, they just populate a screen. It takes 5 seconds for an agent to fill out the questions, but that insight is invaluable to our business moving forward. Within the contact centre, when we get feedback from our agents, from our customers, it should be in real time. Most of the time we get this information back and it's 1 week later, 4 weeks later, or more often in voice of the customer engagements, it's quite often a quarter later. It's too late. When you're getting information from the customer and getting information from your agents, you absolutely have the capability, and you probably have now, if you tweak your systems or enhance them slightly, that you can feed all of the information, whether they've come from your social engagement tool, whether they've come from your contact centre, or whether they've come from any other interaction point. You can gather all that information, bring it into the contact centre. Once we have that feedback and the contact centre metrics in real time, we are able to decide what we need to do to put the situation right. We can very clearly see from our agents' feedback that they need more training. we can see there's something very specific that needs to be put right with a particular customer. We have all this information to hand, but quite often it's not put into usable formats. Wallboards, reports, for example. Gone are the days when we need how long someone's been on the phone for. What we really want to know is how successful our calls are and if the customer is happy with our level of service. So take information that you're already getting from your disparate systems and bring them together. In that part of the process, it's called our operational feedback. When we're looking at an organisation level, it's important that we then look at the results and information for a strategic level. So this is now the strategic closed loop. We gather the information as business heads within our contact centre, and we can deliver this information back to the wider people within our business. So the senior people that are responsible for our contact centre are able to be given the information and are to be armed in order to sit at board level and say, this is what we are seeing on the front line, this is the information that you need, and we have a broken process, or we have a process that we need to enhance. Is it that sometimes interactions just purely take too long, in which case the idea of self-service may or may not be an option? Quite often we see CEOs that are very against implementing self-service, implementing robot technology. And yet, it's only because that's their perception, rather than the customer's perception. But we can take this and we can challenge the rest of our business about what we're told are the constraints. But we take our information based on voice of the customer, voice of the agent, and we can take that and deliver it at board level. We can now influence strategic decisions and investment planning. So just to finish off, before Leon comes in, do embrace all touch points. It's really important, people expect that now, but customer expectation, depending on which touch points you are engaged with, will be different. I expect my telephone call to be handled in a particular way, and I expect first call resolution. Email, I will expect to have several questions asked, and there will be many iterations to get my query resolved. Social, sometimes I post and forget, but yet really, social I post, and I hope that someone else is going to comment. So I'm constantly looking at it. You as a brand need to be the people to comment. Don't wait for others to jump on the bandwagon. So you can deliver insight to the rest of the business, and it is easier than you think. You can demonstrate to the rest of the business how operational changes will be beneficial. And the more you can do that, the more you can seek more investment into the contact centre, and the more people will help you to grow it and to serve the wider community as they want to be served. So, we'll move on to the social piece directly. So, give me 1 second whilst I just make Leon the presenter, and I'll be happy to take questions after Leon completes his part of the presentation.
Thanks very much, Mark. So hopefully you can all see my screen, and thank you to Mark for what I thought an insightful overview of the state of VOC at the moment. So I'm going to really drill down into the social part of this. I wanted to start really with a few stats and why we think social is so important. So 1 in 3 users prefer to contact brands using social media rather than the telephone, according to Nielsen. Of those, only 36% of consumers that make customer service inquiries via social actually have their issues solved quickly and effectively. Of those, 40% divert straight onto the phone. So not only are we not helping people where they choose to engage with us, we're then diverting unhappy customers that are frustrated onto phone. So your agents are there dealing with already unhappy customers have an issue and then haven't been dealt with on their channel of choice. So These days, we have to bear in mind customers are multi-channel and multi-device. And this is why contact centres need to integrate social channels and refine strategies to be able to deliver quality service to the customers across multiple contact points, but also importantly, where the customer wants to engage, where it's easy for them to engage. So they really want to engage on the channels that work best for them, get the answers they need, and really it's for contact centres to adapt to provide this. Let's look at the sort of state of social in businesses, and there's 6 real stages that the businesses are at. There's the initial planning stage, where they're just starting to listen and see where consumers are. Moving on to the presence, where we're setting up our social accounts so people can actually engage directly to us. Moving on to engagement, where we're starting to respond to them and deal with them and actually treat social as a way of engaging. Then we move on to formalized, where we've probably got the technology in place, we've got the governance in place, we've got the process in place. So we're dealing with it professionally, and it's really thought of at a high level in the business. To strategic, where you're starting to become a social business. So you're scaling it across your multiple business units, being used in HR and other departments as well. And the very final top stage, which very few businesses in the world are at now, and most will never get to, but that's where business is social. So social is absolutely critical to your business. You wouldn't really exist without it anymore, and you use it to drive transformation. So I just wonder if we could ask and poll the audience today to see what stage you believe your business is at. Unfortunately, we can't offer the 6th option, which I don't think anyone will be anyway, due to a limitation on the polling. But if you could all just click where you think your business that you're involved in is in this stage, and we'll share the results. Just wait a few more seconds for a few more people to respond. If you haven't yet, just click the option. We're nearly there. Nearly everyone's voted. Okay, so we're seeing that we're about 50% of businesses think they're at that engagement stage, so the middle tier where they're starting to engage on the channels. It's not really formalized at the top level of the business, but they've got channels and you're starting to engage. 17%, so nearly 1 in 5 are still at planning, which is the initial stage. Then we move on to presence, about 20%. So only 13 are at formalized and 0 are at strategic. So it's about where I'd expect it to be. A lot of people are using social, it's been implemented, they're listening, or they're starting to basically start to engage. I think the strategic part of this is the next piece, integration of social into other areas of the business and making sure that we've got social involved in different areas, not just marketing, but being involved in the contact center, and the contact center making decisions on what tools they should be using, how they should be training, and how they should be a social business. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So let's look next at some of the aims and challenges that stops people moving into social, or what they need to try and achieve. So we can see here there's ensure buy-in from the C-suite, trying to reduce the cost to serve and justify the ROI, how to scale up the provision, how to measure the performance critically, how to improve your agent productivity, and how to protect investment in your legacy systems. So it's not really new news that businesses need to integrate social media channels, but many are struggling to understand how to do this and meet the growing customer demand, particularly from an omni-channel experience perspective. So social media, especially is perceived as the most difficult to integrate of the channels as a consumer contact point, probably mostly due to its public nature and how quickly it evolves and changes. So at Sentiment, we've recently put together a social playbook, which we'll be announcing on our blog in the next few weeks, that we hope to address some of these concerns. So we've looked over where social fits, some of the challenges, but let's look at a bit more about maybe how you plan your social engagement and sort of a high-level strategy. So I've popped up 6 very high level approaches you can take and steps you can take. We're slightly time limited today, so I'll keep it quite high level, but I hope it gives some sort of overview of how you can go about this if you haven't already. So the first step really is to define your success criteria in a staged process. So it's a very brand specific topic. Success criteria for one business might be very different to another one. So it could be CSAT on social, it could be how your social sentiment's changed, it could be internal metrics like response time and response rate. Or some people have started to measure sort of gratitude index, how many people are thanking us and expressing thanks compared to the number of complaints we're having, and how does that look over time. But either way, the success criteria you start with probably won't be what you finish with. It's a constantly evolving process. So second, ensure that you can feed back results and data to enhance your contact center offering. So do you have a platform to store all the data, and have you set up processes to collect feedback, because they're critical in refining the process. Thirdly, make educated decisions before expanding. With the data collected in step 2, you should be able to see how successful you are and what needs to change. The data you collect along the way is key to this. And then we look at fourth, what the additional value has social driven. Can it be measured? Is there a lower cost to serve on social? How are your email queues looking, for example, when you introduce social? Are you driving the volumes down? And has CSAT or sentiment gone up, leading to better retention and hopefully spend? Fifth, you can look at your internal and external feedback. You can poll your agents and advisors and find out what can be improved. And you can look at performance metrics from your social engagement platform to help you optimize. And always get your feedback from your customers. Again, some of the things Mark was talking about earlier. And six, lastly, really, you need to future-proof your channel. You need to make sure everything you learn can be used to improve and evolve your social engagement. As we've all seen, the space is constantly changing. There's new social channels. There's new ways that people engage on the channels. So just make sure you have the right technology platform and processes to move on with the times. And just recognize that you're going to have to change as you go. So from a high level, you really need to work from results from stage of a larger plan and not take on too much up front. Like I said, the priorities will change, unknowns will present themselves, and things need to evolve. But back to the data point that Mark mentioned earlier, the data you collect is key in making these educated decisions, feeding back into the business, and ultimately can also be used to help enhance your services and products. So this slide's sort of about listening, because that's a big opportunity that social media provides us, and it lets us really listen to what our customers are saying. Even when we're not getting involved in the debate, we can see what they're saying and learn from them. So listening really needs to be the starting point of any engagement strategy. So your social plan needs to have longevity, and it should align with your strategic goals, which will no doubt involve the usual sorts of things such as customer loyalty, the advocacy, account growth, retention, and hopefully even driving more sales. Happy customers like to spend more if that's the type of business you work in. You can also reduce costs and benefit from the economies of scale with a solid roadmap. But before all of this, it's back to this critical point. You need to listen to your customers. So you need to find out where your customers are talking about you on social. So you should do your research and understand which channels are the most popular in your markets. You could also comparatively analyse volumes to each social channel to help you plan resource-wise when building your team and to forecast inbound and outbound messaging. And lots of social customer service or social analytics platforms will be a big help here. Many don't actually come with the ability to listen to the whole social web to help you really strategically identify where you need to be, but some do, so where you can, use that to help. And you should also analyse your peak times when your customers contact you. This will influence when you need to resource your support team and when you need to be available. And you should also deep dive into the comments to find out why consumers are asking for help or information, what their pain points are, what do they like and what works well for them. For example, you can find out if they feel ignored on a specific channel and see, are they engaging there, are there lots of missed response opportunities. You can see all this sort of overview, and it's all the opportunity that social presents to us. You can even look at how your competitors are doing and see where they're doing a good job and where there's any gaps in their service which you could actually differentiate and provide a better offering. So that's the kind of listening part, but obviously it's kind of key that we look at some ways to measure ROI in what we're doing. And I'll talk through this, but I'll also talk through sort of a high-level overview of how BT generated an ROI with their offerings. So migrating customers from more costly channels can absolutely deliver savings if it is done well, and that's key. It's got to be done well. I mean, people have found benefits like driving down the cost to serve. You know, £6 on the phone, £1 on social. But however, to make this possible, you really need to make sure your team is trained, resourced, tooled up, and ready to deliver. The sort of poor experience on social can actually hurt you more than the poor experience provided on a more one-to-one channel like phone. Social is such a visible forum, so if you launch it and you haven't thought it through, haven't planned it, and you do it badly and give people poor experience, they're very, very likely, as we've seen, to start commenting about that. So you need to make sure you're monitoring that, measuring that, and feeding that into the process. But clearly, if it's handled sensibly and planned well, there can be a great ROI there for introducing social. So BT wanted to work out, ROI and look at how they could drive benefits, but also save costs. So they identified that the ease of contact was a major factor in reducing churn and satisfaction of customers. So recognizing this, they set up their Net Easy score. So they measured all the different customer contact points and worked out a way of scoring what was easier. And they found that social media outscored email, online self-service, and voice. And the result, which is pretty impressive, is introducing social this way saved them $2 million a year, and they had 600,000 contacts per year rerouted via social. So I think that's a great example of how ROI can be achieved. So let's look at the technology side of it and the logistics of how do we go about introducing social. So Dimension Data have found that 80% of contact centers do not think their technology is future-proof. So the investment in sort of existing technology, we know it's protected because consumers will always continue to contact us on voice. So some of these traditional channels, the contact center solutions you have in, quite often are protected. But the challenge is, how do you modernize this, and how do you make sure you're fit for purpose to deliver digital customer service, which includes social channels? Or whether in some cases you need to introduce more cloud-based solutions to deliver an omni-channel experience. The reality, as we've seen, is, as Dimension Data found, 80% do not think their existing technology is future-proof, and they're shifting quite often from the on-premise model to having either a blended on-premise with some cloud solutions wrapped around it, or to a full cloud solution. And it obviously depends on the business, the industry, but that's a general trend. And furthermore, they found that 34% of the contact centers are planned for hosting solutions. They've done that because they want to help reduce costs. So as social becomes this more important as an inbound support channel, many tools have started to add on the ability to add your social channels. So it's primarily Twitter and Facebook, but it allows you to sort of start creating tickets and issues and start dealing with these social media mentions. And that's attractive, we completely get that. You might want to add on that social capability into the solution you already have. But what we found is many of these tools have added this, and it's quite a limited offering. So they don't have all the capabilities you need, but they give you that sort of bonus of being able to just do it in one place. But some customers really need to have all the capabilities they need, the dedicated social capabilities. And what we've tended to do is to help, where there's a legacy solution, and we work with IPI on things like that, so they might be using things like Avaya. How do we integrate social into that? So our solution alongside that solution to give one integrated approach. So that can be very beneficial, so you can get a kind of best of breed approach. But either way, here are a few sort of questions that can help assess whether your current solution is fit for purpose. So, do you have the capability to route comments to a specific agent based on workflow criteria? So, without sufficient automations to route these mentions to the right team, and then, of course, approval workflows, so you make sure only the right replies are going out, you can also end up with sort of missed complaints on your brand's account, and marketing and sales inquiries going to your support accounts, so wasting a lot of agent time. So you should check into that. And can your support team access conversation histories to inform replies? Many vendors will pick up a mention, then they send you to Facebook or the relevant platform where you post your reply, and this means that there's no customer history stored within your solution. So next time that customer comes back to you, you've got no evidence of what's happened in the past, and you have to start all over again. So that's definitely worth checking. And are you able to monitor conversations beyond Facebook and Twitter? Nearly all solutions can cover these sort of two to a limited degree, but what about the other social channels? For example, if you're a retailer, then you really need to be monitoring and engaging on platforms like Instagram. So the right technology will help you make sure you can add all these different social sites into one organized inbox to allow you to handle your customers in a consistent way, regardless of the social channel they choose to engage on, which obviously cuts down training time, makes everything much more coherent. And are you able to search for indirect mentions on Twitter? A solution that doesn't allow you to search outside the official handles will mean you always miss a share of those interactions. If you think about Twitter, there's lots of people that will use a hashtag for a brand by mistake rather than at, or they might misspell the brand. So we need to be able to sort of keyword search and find these conversations so we don't miss anything. So other considerations could be, does marketing have an oversight on messaging and comments to protect reputations? Are customer service supervisors able to analyse incoming conversations and spot trends in customer behaviour? They're all considerations you need to look at. So what I'd like to do now is just do another quick poll based on this stat from Dimension Data that 80% of contact centres do not think their technology is future-proof. I just wanted to see if Chantal could pop up the poll and see, do the audience here today, do you think your current technology is fit for purpose to deliver digital customer service? Just a yes or no. Okay, so we'll stop it about there. So we've got about 64% saying no, they don't think their technology is currently fit for purpose, and 36% saying yes. So not quite as extreme as Dimension Data's survey, but it still shows a picture where 2/3 of people don't think that their technology is fit for purpose. So it's a big challenge in the industry. So we've talked about the structure, how we can put it in, costs. But what about the people involved? Because people are a key part in putting the social plan into action. And nothing's going to work without the right people and the right training. So when it comes to social, you need to invest in the people who are the gatekeepers of your brand's reputation in this very public domain. So you really need to invest in them. So the quality of the support team you build, the training program and the engagement technology you provide, and how you reward staff is critical, I think. Customer-facing roles are changing, and teams need to be empowered to deliver high-quality interactions and the real dialogue with customers at scale, and often in very close to real time. So training existing staff to become blended agents working across multiple channels might seem like the quickest and most efficient solution, which in some industries that can work quite well. But your best people on the phone may not be good at writing these types of responses, and some contact center agents won't be comfortable engaging with customers on public channels. And others simply won't have the written skills to respond effectively, particularly when, for example, we're looking at Twitter where there's character limits. So obviously there's some crossover skills with email, and you may be able to migrate and retrain some agents from other channels. But again, we have to consider what's the expectation of a channel. Mark talked a bit about this earlier. With email, you might expect several backs and forwards. Live chat's a bit different, social's a bit different. So you need to make sure you're grouping people with skills with the right channels together. It's most likely you're going to need to recruit some new staff given the specific skills needed around the sort of multitasking nature and engaging with the brand's tone of voice on social. So your agents really need to be confident, and they need to be able to work autonomously and have emotional intelligence to be able to read your customers. I think another point here is about social media playbooks. And it's definitely worth creating one and having clear guidelines on what can be shared on this sort of these open channels, and what you'd rather have as a brand discussed in private conversations, either through private messages or DMs, or someone's even diverting the customer across the live chat, particularly when we're talking about confidential information. So with your playbook, you should include the real-world examples of how to apply to the specific types of questions and comments. Also, things like how you should be handling specific types of complaints and how you deal with offensive language. What's your company process on social? So having lots of different examples of replies and scenarios is a really good way to do that. You might have 10, 15, 20 different examples of the types of conversations that you get and the ways you'd like as a brand to deal with it. With some brands like to make cheeky and funny responses to things. So what are agents empowered to do that? You should also have a clear policy in the playbook on the triggers for when a comment needs to be escalated, and guidelines on the sort of distinction between what's an issue and what's a crisis. So giving your agents the right sort of social customer service app really helps them do this, and letting members use the system in a test environment first of all will help them to overcome any apprehension and test this in a pure test environment, not going out publicly on social, either using test accounts and simulated environments, which is quite often something we do when we bring on new clients. We work with them in a test environment to show them how the system will work in a live environment. You could also introduce a supervisor approval loop, particularly to help with training new agents or people new to social. You could set, 100% of their responses first need to go to a supervisor to check at first, and then change their role over time, dropping it to 70%, so down to 10% until they don't need approval. And finally, if you have a supervisor dashboard or performance dashboard, it's useful to see, both from a governance performance perspective, but also for ongoing training. What are people tagging the content as? How fast is their response rate? How big are their queues? Really helping to optimize with these people. So having that right infrastructure and putting the right people in place ensures you can deliver your social strategy. You also need to prove it and continue to evolve it. So how do we do this? And it's all down to measuring and reporting. So as we know, measuring and reporting is critical in the contact center environment on all channels, and social is not different at all. You lose a lot of efficiency if you don't monitor and analyze agent performances and what's going on, particularly on social where volumes can be quite high and disparate channels. So obviously optimizing resources and your training plan will be driven by your organization or client requirements, but there are some best practice sort of guidelines to help, and I'll run through just a few of those that we can think of here. So concerning role configuration, it's important to configure an engagement platform to benefit the user and only assign roles which are limited to the task they're responsible for. So the functionality built into your social app can really help here. So really lock down your agent permissions to let them do exactly what they're trained and capable of. You can also ensure agents have real-time visibility of all their comments, which are currently live on social. And again, having good workflow, automation, filters and processes in place will help agents prioritize the sort of genuine customer service comments which need a reply without being overwhelmed with inboxes filled with noise. Quite often something we do, because there's often so many marketing posts put out on Facebook, for example, you then end up with loads of comments back, either for competitions or promotions, comments coming back about this that can flood lots of social tools inboxes. You don't want that coming into your contact center. So you can use automations to take out comments which do not need a service response and then route them automatically to the marketing queue, for example, so your marketers in the company can check the responses. Quite often we set up spam queues as well, so it identifies based on either keyword or other triggers comments that we know are spam and route them away from the contact center team so they don't have to try and read them and waste time processing them. So this lightens the load, drives down your operating costs and really helps you drive a very fast response to customers that do need you at this time. Also, by routing comments to specific agent inboxes, it allows team managers to plan and optimize resources to deal with these daily volumes and plan for spikes. And as we know, wallboards and dashboards are always a favorite in any customer service department. But having visibility on inbound comments from social, things like team performance metrics, business hour response times by team and tag trends, it helps fuel both competitiveness in the contact center, but also lets you outperform on your targets and optimize over time. It's also critical with social. One of the main bonuses is you can really quickly spot when there's a crisis kicking off or when there's a trend or a volume surge on social. Quite often that's replicated across your other channels. So social can be a really good early warning system to help you resource for these spikes. And tagging is an important ongoing performance and resource planning strategy. So by tagging, obviously each mention as it comes in, you can enable your supervisors and administrators to report on social conversation, identify comment types. You can actually use, if you want to use the existing categories you use across the business on other channels to give a sort of coherent view across customer service. Or you can drill down and have very specific ones for social, just for optimizing that channel. Both are worth considering. And you also need to measure engagement to be able to manage the social customer service you provide and demonstrate the value alongside traditional channels, help improve agent performance and justify the investment. So KPIs on social can be very similar to those of voice, email and chat, but they're always driven by a commitment for early resolution and quality engagement, which are key things. So just last slide, just to finish off. Another stat from Dimension Data found that 53% of contact centers think analytics will be the most influential in reshaping the industry over the 5 years. But 4 out of 10 do not have the tools to analyze data, and metrics on social engagement are by far the biggest unknown. So there's just a few sort of passing thoughts on how to analyze customer interaction on multiple departments to improve the customer journey. So first, the real insights come from real feedback, good and bad. So you can use your analytics tool in your social customer service app to take a deep dive into these customer conversations to understand what drives the customer satisfaction, what drives complaints and motivation and behaviours. Unsolicited feedback can also provide really unique insights. So another really valuable thing from social. Assimilate insight from customer interactions to improve service quality. Train your agents on all channels on how to deliver consistent experience. People often turn to social to complain about how they've been treated by staff elsewhere in your business. But it's never all bad news. That's a great learning opportunity. They'll also tell you about great service you've done, which is really worthwhile sharing on your channels to really drive engagement from their followers and drive great positive brand awareness. And also analyze conversation tags applied by agents while using their engagement tool to give you actionable insight on the types of queries and the reasons your customers contact you in the first place. And finally, you can assess your customer suggestions to improve products and services. There may well be ideas coming up from your customers that really help you innovate and outflank your competitors, so it can be a real competitive advantage. And that's really it. Thank you very much for listening. I hope it's given you a few things to think about. And Chantel, I think we're going to take a few questions.
Yes, we are, Leon. Thank you both very much for the insightful presentations that you gave. Just got a couple of questions here I'm going to put to the two of you. So the first one is, what are the current standard industry response times on social?
Well, there's not really a standard industry response times. It does vary by platform. There's surveys out there that say things like people expect a response time for about 30 minutes on Twitter. And we've put our technology into lots of retailers, from retailers like B&Q nationally to people like eBay globally. And there was a great e-consultancy report that ranked the top 20 retailers in the UK. And actually B&Q came out top. And they had about one survey they had about a 3-minute response time, the other an 8-minute response time. So they were really very, very effective working with their partners at Sensos. So that's something we think is a very impressive response time, but it does depend on the size of your team, the industry you're in, the type of inbound comments you're having. Twitter recently upped the direct messages you can have. They actually upped the limit on it. So quite often you'll get people getting private messages on Facebook and Twitter that are very, very long, almost like emails. So that can impact your response time. So it depends whether you're measuring your response time across private messages as well as the public forum.
Mark, do you have anything to add on that at all?
No, I think we see that quite a lot. When we go into contact centres and people that are engaging in the same way, there isn't really any hard and fast rules it often does have a bearing on the industry that you're in as well. So, for example, the construction industry and people in the housing industry, their response times can be a lot less because the buying cycle and the engagement cycle is a lot longer. Whereas when you're talking about instant retail markets, then the response has to be quicker because the competition is far stronger.
That's great, thank you very much. And the second question I have here, it looks like a big task to implement a full solution. Is there value in implementing it in sections?
So I'm guessing that's probably around the agents part and the contact centre piece, etc. So if that is the thread of the question, then it is a perception, to be honest, that's widely carried within the industry that it is a task and something that the IT parts of the business are reluctant to engage with. In reality, it isn't that. Each part of the circle that I showed earlier, and indeed a lot of the wider technologies that are associated with contact centres, can be easily implemented, normally by just enhancing what you've already got, satisfying a particular part of the customer journey life cycle, or voice the customer feedback. And the trick is to work out exactly what you've currently got, how far you can use that to enhance the service that you provide and the insight you can give internally with the organisations. And only then do you need to look at the very niche areas, such as social, such as perhaps post-call surveys that you may need help with additional technology. So it normally isn't. It isn't something that you're looking at hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's something that you normally need to get a little bit of advice about and move the project on bit by bit. But it's traditionally not something that requires a lot of time and a lot of resource and a lot of pounds.
Great, thanks, Mark. Have you got anything to add to that at all, Leon?
Well, a few things, I suppose. It depends what perspective you're coming on. If you're worried about integrating everything at once, you don't always need to. Sometimes like I said earlier, you might have an on-premise solution, but you can often bring in cloud solutions that integrate back across. So it really depends where you are as a business, whether you're ripping and replacing and starting again, which I guess can be a challenge, not always though, or whether you're actually integrating different solutions together. These days we're seeing a lot more solutions that have APIs and ways to plug channels together. So, for example, you could use our cloud solution, then the API could pull out all your performance metrics and response times and conversation with customers, and then overlay it with your core CRM or your core contact center solution to see that data all in one place. So it does depend exactly what you're trying to achieve.
That's great, guys. I'm just conscious about the time. We've taken up an hour already. So I'm going to close off if that's okay with you, unless you have any closing statements to make at all.
No, I just thank everybody for spending the time with us, and please feel free to contact either of us through the usual methods, and Chantel will provide any other contact details, but we're available through social media, of course, but any other technology you wish to contact us by, get in touch and we'll help you through making changes or offering advice as we can.
Great, thank you.
Say that for me.
Well, that just leaves me to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon, and we do hope that this session was very informative for you. If you do have any questions, like Mark says, after the webinar has finished, but in particular, please feel free to email myself. It's chantel@uk-ccf.co.uk, and I'll put you in touch with either Mark or Leon. Thank you to both of our speakers today, Mark and Leon. Thank you for your time, and a special thank you to our sponsor, Sentiment, and to IP Integrations for partnering with us. I'm going to say the C words, I'm afraid. It remains for me to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from everybody at UKCCF team, and we look forward to welcoming you to events in 2016. We are going live with a brand new website in January, so everything for 2016 has already been fully loaded, and everybody on our database will get an email announcing the launch. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.